Hey guys, it's Miss Kennedy. I'm going to go over Encounter 2 again, just in case y'all like to hear it again, and to make sure that you can reinforce your formative assessment that we did in class. You remember there were 4 squares. We did the first square in class, and so the second, the third, and the fourth is what's due on Monday in our Share Center, Monday in our Share Center, so that we can get started there. Okay, so just to go over things with our Encounter 2, variables are pretty important. That's probably the toughest piece of this unit. We just definitely need to make sure that we understand that the independent, dependent, and control variables are in a relationship with one another. Independent variables is what's changed. Dependent variables is what responds to that change. And your control variable is what we keep constant throughout that experiment so that it does not affect the independent variable. Otherwise, we do not have an experimental group. An experimental group is only test one variable, so we can't introduce other concepts or other variables into a closed experiment. So in our classes, one of the classes chose Mentos and Cokes, and the other both chose frogs or an animal. So we talked about frogs. In the example that was given in class, we talked about distance and the reading of an from an eye chart. Okay, so what happened is whenever we looked at that independent variable, what we did is we took that person, they read the eye chart, we moved them back. They read again, we moved them back. So what we were changing was the actual distance each time. What was affected was what they were able to read, so the words they were able to see. What were the things that we kept the same? We kept the lighting in the room the same. We read the same chart. We used the same set of eyes. Okay? Now, Miss Kennedy she turned the lights on at one point, and I did not control my experiment. I actually introduced a new variable. And that would have thrown off and made my experiment invalid at that point. Okay? If we had introduced a control group, our control group is something that does not receive the independent variable. So for example, our independent variable was the one that was changed, so the distance. So in other words, a person or some person would have been asked to read line 3, line 16, line 5 at the same distance every time. That would have been considered our control group. Okay? Control variables and control groups are 2 different things. A variable is also known as a constant, okay? Something that is kept constant. It remains the same. The control group is something that we test against. It's our comparative value to our experimental group, okay? All right. With these things, we form something known as a hypothesis. Our hypothesis is usually stated in an if, then, because statement. So, if the independent variable, then the dependent variable, because of some research, inference, or observation. We talked about research and what was good and valid research in the class hand beforehand. So make sure you refer to that How Science Works little handouts, okay? Remember, those are your go-to guides in this classroom. All right? If you have any other questions or you need any help, please let me know. All right, please remember that your quiz is coming up soon, so make sure you look over this and use this to help fill in that little chart. Thanks.